The creativity movement. Florida in the 70s, a land of sunburns, bad fashion choices, and the birthplace of creativity, aka Church of the Creator, a cult that's like if racism decided to start its own book club. The founder, Ben Klassen, said, "You know what the world needs? A religion about nothing, except white people." And so his circus was born, a mix of white supremacy, anti-theism, and anti-Christian sentiment. Now, the head honcho in creativity gets the title Pontifex Maximus. Sounds like a rejected boss name from a bad Assassin's Creed DLC to me. These guys chant their racist version of daily affirmations 5 times a day, like, "Our race is our religion," and "Racial treason is the worst crime," which is quite wild because my 4-year-old committing treason against bedtime feels worse to me. So anyway, adherents are expected to avoid non-whites like I avoid Brussels sprouts, refute homosexuality, and even steer clear of complaining, which is ironic given their whole worldview is just one giant tantrum. Klassen also told everyone to just eat fruit and nuts, but guess what? Of course this guy was secretly munching on steak and ice cream like a fitness bro who preaches keto but smashes 200 grams of carbs a day. And oh boy, the hate. They literally want a racial holy war against anyone who isn't white. But they of course claim they are totally not Nazis, like someone insisting, "I don't camp in shooters, I just tactically wait for you to walk into my crosshair." Sure bro. This cult is like someone took a blender, tossed in racism, bad Latin, and a sprinkle of diet hypocrisy. Rebranded numerous times, it's still active in several countries to this day. The Rosary Prayer Group. Italy, 1988. In an isolated farmhouse straight out of The Godfather, but way weirder, Catholic sect leader Lidia Naccarato decided she had the inside scoop on the end of the world. Spoiler alert, she didn't. Lidia, her 35 followers, and apparently her dead uncle Antonio, yeah, you heard that right, were convinced they were about to witness Christ's return and Uncle Antonio's resurrection, like a weird family reunion. When the prophecy flopped harder than the Cyberpunk 2077 launch, things went from bad to what the actual heck in record time. Lydia claiming Uncle Antonio was still dishing out orders from beyond the grave, decided one of the members, Pietro Latella, was possessed by Satan himself. According to her, Pietro wasn't just vibing, he was plotting evil stuff, like eating steak well done. Of course, according to her, the only solution was to murder him. Therefore, Lydia rallied her cultists to execute Pietro, who was shot, tied to a chair, and left in a sealed room. When police arrived to investigate a gunshot wound incident involving a different cult member, they found about 30 people in white robes, all murmuring "Hail Mary" and moving about in a trance-like state. Reminds me of Resident Evil 4 a bit. They also found pictures of Uncle Antonio and the Virgin Mary next to a dismembered cat and enough weapons to make John Wick raise an eyebrow. Oh, and let's not forget the mafia-style corpse they found tied up in a way the infamous 'Ndrangheta mafia reserved for traitors. Apparently Uncle Antonio, who was very much not alive, had some interesting advice from beyond the grave. Apparently he told Lydia, "Minchia ciccarella, convince these guys to make some love to each other." Meaning he told Lydia apparently to convince certain members that hooking up with the same sex was a holy mission to redeem evil. I guess this Lydia had a whole flock of birds flapping around in her head. The Maniacs murder cult, aka MKY. No clue what that stands for. This is one of the most twisted extremist groups. Emerging in Ukraine and Russia around 2017, this group aims to create chaos and violence to force the collapse of society. Their neo-Nazi culture is inspired by groups like the Order of Nine Angles, especially the Temple of Blood. Every potential member must pass a vetting process that includes an act of violence, including murder, vandalism, arson, cybercrime, and bioterrorism. Members are expected to record these crimes and share them on platforms like Telegram. The group even uses a morbid scoring system dubbed murder points, where acts of violence are rewarded to increase your rank within the cult. Absolutely insane. To be considered an active member, individuals must reach a minimum score even. Falling short results in disciplinary action, whatever that means. Ideologically, they mix misanthropy, xenophobic nationalism, and Satanism. They worship and aim to emulate serial killers like the Una Bomber, Zodiac Killer, the Racist Killer, and the Dnipropetrovsk Maniacs. Under its leader Mikhail Chikishvili, the cult sought to escalate from targeted violence to mass casualty events, as evidenced by a foiled plan to poison individuals in New York disguised as a Santa Claus act. He was arrested in July 2024 in Moldova. The Holy Spirit movement was a wild blend of Christian mysticism, rebellion, and some truly out-there beliefs, led by Alice Lakvena, a self-proclaimed prophetess and spirit medium from Uganda. Alice worshipped a chief spirit, the ghost of a 95-year-old Italian man who had drowned in the Nile. That makes as much sense as using a baguette as a flashlight. How do they come up with this stuff? Now, this spirit communicated divine orders, of course, like a strict lifestyle for her followers. No booze, smokes, anger, and no saucepan cooked food. What did they use then? Oh, and you couldn't join if you had more or less than 2 testicles. Yeah, I'm as confused as you guys. Alice's mission started as purifying her people, but quickly escalated to purifying all of Africa and eventually the entire world. She convinced her soldiers that rocks would transform into grenades, blessed water would make them bulletproof, and her concoctions of snake bones and beeswax would unleash swarms of animals and insects on the enemies. Despite these magical promises, her rebellion against the National Resistance Army didn't end well. Many of her followers marched into gunfire, armed with faith and shea tree oil for protection. Let's just say the spiritual armor didn't hold up. The Partridge family temple. A cult so absurd it feels like it was pulled straight from the fever dream of someone who spent too much time sniffing polyester and bell-bottoms. This faith was built around a 1970s sitcom that featured a wholesome family of musicians, but these folks worshipped them. To them, Keith Partridge, the main guy of the show, was the satyr sex god whose tree of knowledge was, let's say, anatomically specific. Shirley, the mom, became the virgin earth goddess for them. They believed she causes earthquakes in the real world, which they called god happenings. The temple's story started in 1988 when the founder, Sean Fairley, was force-fed Partridge family records by a rogue reverend until his brain decided, you know what? This slaps. Armed with a wardrobe straight out of a disco thrift store, Farley declared this the funnest religion in the universe. By the 90s, the temple had spread its groovy chaos across continents, with Fairley leading the charge as a walking mid-70s clown, shouting his gospel at concerts and stalking the actors of the show. Along the way, he teamed up with Giddle Partridge, a Satanist pop artist. In the mid-90s, the group took their bizarre act to Portland, earning a reputation as creeps and women beaters. Fairley frequently got into bar fights and they practiced incest in the group. Fairley even once threatened to marry his sister. Devil worship and even a preference for urine-related stuff were also a thing. Oh, and they also openly loved cults like the Manson family and the Rajneeshpuram, which checks out because if you're gonna idolize a sitcom band, why not also idolize some of the most notorious cults in history? Odaeyang Church. In 1987, South Korean police were chasing down Park Sun-ya, the leader of a religious sect disguised as a trading company, for allegedly swindling $8.7 million from over 200 people. Her company, Odaeyang Trading, was basically a financial front for her doomsday cult, which had splintered off from the Korean Evangelical Baptist Church, led by Yo Byung-eun. Sorry guys, my Korean is a bit rusty. But things took a horrifying turn when police found Park, her 3 kids and 28 other sect members bound, gagged and dead in what looked like a murder-suicide pact. At first, authorities suspected that Yoo Byung-eun might be connected to the case, but they could never tie him directly to the tragedy. Eventually, the case was chalked up to a mass suicide, leaving more questions than answers. Later investigations did reveal that Park had been moving money around, and while there were whispers that it might have benefited Yo's Evangelical Baptist Church, prosecutors couldn't make it stick. Yo himself ended up in prison for fraud unrelated to Odaeyang, so he wasn't exactly running a moral high ground either. Orgonite Society. This isn't just a cult with a celebrity endorsement, it's a celebrity production. Brought to you by Jaden Smith, his then girlfriend Kylie Jenner, and his sister Willow. The whole thing revolves around Orgonite pyramids, a homemade concoction of resin, glitter, and crystals. The group believed these muffin-shaped things could fix Mother Earth's bad vibes, but also repel aliens and demons and even unlock psychic powers, but only if placed in the right spots like near cell towers or power plants. Kylie's 2014 picture of her blood-red Orgonite sparked rumors of ties to a sex cult, since Orgonite's backstory includes Wilhelm Reich, a 1930s doctor who claimed these crystals stored orgasm energy. Reich's controversial healing involved locking people in Orgonite-lined sex boxes to recharge their vibes. Let's just say the vibe check failed and Reich ended up in prison for medical quackery. Oh, and Reich's teachings laid the groundwork for the unsettling practices of the infamous Osho cult, which I covered in another video. Despite these origins, Orgonite became a trend. Spencer Pratt has a $450,000 collection of it. His wife gave birth surrounded by it, Lady Gaga hugged one in her video, and even Adele claimed it boosted her comeback. The Modern Mystery School. This cult builds itself as the Harvard of metaphysics, offering teachings and rituals claiming to unlock human potential and activate hidden DNA for enlightenment. Founder Gudney Goodison was born in Iceland and is a descendant of the Norse thunder god Thor. Nice. He claims he spent 10 years in the spirit world, and during this time he was raised by gods and angels while gaining mystical powers. He is now a shaman who claims that all humans are gods, but of course only after going through his school. Gudney's journey to establishing his school includes running from debts, ditching his wife and children, hosting a fight club for children in Iceland, selling magic potions on the web, and promoting survival seminars. When he met his third wife, the duo started telling people that they found a plasma ship crash-landed in a lake one night. They were of course abducted and learned all about superior alien technologies. Bit jealous, not gonna lie. Armed with this cosmic know-how, they had to start their school, which promotes a lineage dating back to King Solomon and students like Da Vinci, Shakespeare, and Nikola Tesla. The institution operates on a multi-level pyramid scheme, heavily emphasizing recruitment quotas. And if you don't meet them, you're being yelled at for 3 hours straight and ridiculized in front of other members. Sign me up, Goodison, that sounds amazing. Oh, and members pay thousands of dollars for courses like Viking magic and galactic activation, excluding pricey books and crystals, of course. Hey, poor little Goodison gotta pay his bills, okay? Don't be so stingy. Former members complain about manipulation, coercion, and financial exploitation, along with bizarre rituals like being buried alive at the base of Mount Fuji for spiritual advancement, allegations of ritualistic sexual practices, including non-consensual encounters, are the icing on the cake. Gudney claims to live a life of sacrifice, but of course enjoys the perks of gurudom, living a lavish life in luxury. The Seaside Sect was a disturbing polygamous cult founded in the early 70s in New Zealand by Alistair Laichkakofa, or however you pronounce this guy. His real name was Ian Lowy, by the way. As self-styled messiah, Laichkakov drew from Jewish, Muslim, Mormon and Pacific Islander beliefs to justify his practices, which included controlling 9 wives and fathering 64 children. Oh, and he also believed that an alien spaceship would take the group from Earth. This dude ruled his cult with an iron fist, indoctrinating followers to see outsiders as evil. Didn't obey him? Well, he threatened you with punishment and violence from God. He compared himself to King Solomon, boasting about sleeping with multiple wives each night. He also hid children in the group, saying they got the devil in them, this sick bastard. His reign of abuse culminated in charges of sexual violence and assault against young girls. By the time of his 2000 conviction for 20 sexual offenses, the cult had already dissolved in 1993. This guy died in 2012. I hope he rots in hell. The Christian Science Church is one of those heard about it but never got the details cults, often described as the thinker's religion. Back in the day, it was the fastest growing denomination in the US, hitting 270,000 members by 1936. Its core belief? The material world, evil, sickness, and even death is just an illusion. The real deal is the spiritual world, which is 100% good and apparently also where your immune system lives. Their philosophy boils down to this. Every illness, from a sniffle to stage 4 cancer, isn't physical, it's spiritual. And what's the prescription? Well, prayer, of course. Lots and lots of prayer. Forget hospitals. You're praying away that tumor. Chronic illnesses like epilepsy or mental health issues? These guys think those are just spiritual weak spots that need extra prayer power. Ironically, the founder, Mary Baker Eddy, who claimed to have recovered from a life-threatening accident in 1866 by reading about one of Jesus' healings, later died of pneumonia after refusing medical treatment. Not exactly a glowing testimonial. Celebrity member Val Kilmer once stuck to these beliefs, almost dying of a tumor in 2015 before getting actual medical care. He survived. The church certifies practitioners to offer Christian Science prayer sessions for $50. They even run nursing homes without medical services. Meanwhile, members are asked to cough up an annual tax and are encouraged to leave the church a little something in their wills. Because nothing says spiritual purity like securing the church's financial future, huh? Frankism was an 18th to 19th century Sabbatean religious movement founded by Jacob Frank in Podolia, a historic region in modern Ukraine and Moldova. Combining elements of Judaism and Christianity, Frankism embraced the belief in salvation through the rejection of laws and moral norms. Jacob Frank claimed to be the reincarnation of both Sabbatai Zevi, an earlier Jewish messiah, and the biblical patriarch Jacob. Frank preached that breaking traditional Jewish commandments, such as dietary laws, was essential to free divine sparks. His followers engaged in orgies and father-daughter incest, viewing these as acts of spiritual rebellion. Frank taught that all societal, religious and moral laws were evil tools and should be overthrown. This guy was completely insane. He therefore created a militarized community requiring followers to train as soldiers wearing plate armor and shields to establish a Frankist-controlled state. He demanded blind obedience of his inner circle called the brothers and sisters. But women were excluded from leadership positions as Frank believed they were the root of death in the world. Rejected by Jewish authorities in Poland and excommunicated for heretical beliefs, Frank the Tank declared himself part of a trinity and demanded the deification of himself. Ultimately, facing execution for claiming to be the Messiah, Frank even converted to Islam. What a clown. Thanks for watching, guys. Go check out the channel for more cult videos. Don't miss out.